From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today is making a name for herself in the international skydiving community as a well-known skydiver and organizer for one of the most exciting events emerging out of Europe, the European Skydiving Symposium. With over 2,000 jumps, Marta Molinska is an AFF instructor and event manager and board member for a drop zone named SkyCamp in Poland. On a personal level, I can attest that Marta is a force whose MO is getting things done. I'm pleased to welcome Marta Molinska to the 20-Minute Call. Hey, Marta.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me and for this amazing introduction. I'm really, really honored.
Thank you for joining me. I'm honored. I have recently returned from Poland, having been invited by you to speak at the European Skydiving Symposium, and I am very bold in saying it was one of the best conferences I've ever attended, not just in skydiving, anywhere.
Well, what can I say? I can only tell you that I'm overwhelmed with the words of appreciation from your side. And to be honest, the decision of inviting you was very spontaneous during the PIA symposium a year before. It was 2023, and we attended one of your talks. And that was, we agreed with Kasia that I attended your talk with. We agreed like with no words at all. Just, we had a look at each other and that was it. The decision was made. And I have to truly say, and that was one of the best agenda-related decisions that we ever made. So thank you very much for agreeing to being part of the symposium and to giving two, not only one, but two of your talks, which were super well received.
Thank you. It was an honor to be there, and I had so much fun. It was really great. Let's jump right in. Let's talk about you. Marta, I know you only by your titles, operator at a drop zone, an event organizer, but I'd like to get a better sense of who you are as a person. Can you tell me about your background and your family and where you're from?
I'm originally from Poland. So I basically never moved out of the country. There were some times that I lived abroad for a couple of months, but that was always, short periods. I have a family. I have Sebastian, who you know, who is also co-organizing jumps with me at SkyCamp. He is a pilot and AFF instructor as myself. He was actually my instructor, all in AFF and also to become an AFF instructor. Yeah, we make a family and we also have two daughters. So this is kind of, SkyCamp is kind of a family business. Before I started jumping, that's kind of funny because I used to organize conferences. It was obviously not skydiving related because I didn't know the whole skydiving world back then, but it was e-commerce industry. I still do those conferences every now and then, once a year, once maybe every second year or something like that. So it's still there, kind of. But I have to say that European Skydiving Symposium stole my heart, and the whole commitment that I can have is whole put into ESS, obviously.
Tell me, what did your parents do? And do you have siblings?
Yeah, I do have siblings. I have a brother. He's a manager of a restaurant in Warsaw. We don't really stay in touch that much, but every now and then we just see each other when I visit Warsaw. And my parents, my dad has an online shop with Land Rover parts. And since the war started in Ukraine, he's also very much involved in securing medical equipment and ambulances for Ukraine. Back in the day, we at SkyCamps we also had a kind of shelter for refugees. So that was our input in the whole refugee time. I would say the first months of the war. And after that, I started to work together with my dad to provide as much as we can for our friends in Ukraine. And my mother manages real estate.
Interesting. So how would you describe your childhood?
Eventful, I would say. Both my parents were very well. They didn't agree on many things, but they agree on one, and that was my education. As you mentioned, I have a sibling, I have a brother, but my education was somehow more important for them. I could see that, I could feel that, and after many years, they admitted that that was their agreement, that they want to invest more in my education because, girls need to have their way. And they were very persistent with languages. They said that I have to study English, I have to study French, and then other languages if I even can. So that was their biggest goal, I would say. And after many years now, I have to say that that's the best thing that they could give me, because languages, they open the world to you.
Mm. Yeah, your English is very good. I was curious about that. What did you study in school aside from languages?
The usual. The high school was just an average high school, so that was nothing special about it. You said besides languages, but my university was actually all about languages. I studied French philology.
Wow.
So yeah, languages
No big
all
deal,
around.
Huh? Amazing. And how would your friends describe you?
Oh, I don't know. You have to ask them.
That's that.
I don't really know. I mean, if you ask my friends, I would say that many of them would say that I have the power of making things happen. So that's one of my kind of, skills, however you call it. And that I'm creative. That's something that I hear a lot, and very passionate about things that I do. I think those are the most frequent things that I hear.
Marta, my take on you was you're extremely determined. You get things done, but you get things done without fuss or drama. You just put your head down and you move forward, and you're either with you or you're not with you, but either way, you get things done. So where does that come from? Is that just you, or is that from your family? It's an interesting spirit.
I never really thought about it in other way that it's just me. And I'm not really thinking about it that much, because this is my usual way to be and way of working on things. Many people think that I'm kind of a good person to work with in terms of like team building or team working, like working together as a team. But in the end, I think that I'm very quick with things. When I write an email and I don't get the answer within like 24 hours, I kind of feel like it's moving too slow. And for many, 3 days, it's a good time to answer to an email. And this is just an example. I really like having things done in the shortest time possible. This is exactly how I try to keep the track of things and push them forward. It's like with the decision of having the symposium moved out of the country. Not sure if you have that on your list of questions, but
I do.
you do. So maybe I shouldn't tell the story right away. Like, we had a couple of questions in the last months or even years. Sometimes it popped up in the conversation. Did you ever think of having the symposium somewhere else, not in Poland? Or sometimes it came up as an advice. You should do it outside of Poland because of this or that. So that thought was in our heads, every now and then, like between, focusing on more pressing stuff. But the decision was, in the end, it was kind of spontaneous, because we just received one email of one of the sponsors who asked about it, and it was just yet another suggestion that we had. And I talked with Maya, the main organizer of the symposium, Arek Majewski. We discussed it over a cup of coffee during the BPA event in Nottingham in January this year. And he said, so what do you think about it? I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's do it wherever. I was like, okay, so maybe let's do it in Czech Republic. It's close. We could drive there. And I was like, maybe some country which is a little bit warmer, maybe Italy. And he was like, maybe in Spain. Well, okay, let's do it in Spain. And that was it.
And that was it. If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Burble. Okay, so let's talk about the European Skydiving Symposium since we're talking about it now. So for those unfamiliar, the European Skydiving Symposium happens in the off year or in between years of PIA. So the next one is going to be in 2025.
It's 2026.
And it's going to be in Spain. 2026, excuse me.
Yeah.
Marta, just for our listeners to know, the conference that you just put on in Poland and have, is sort of this growing tide. It's this, it's getting stronger and stronger, and it's more and more people are learning about this incredible event that really brings in many industry speakers, manufacturers, sort of everybody in-house that addresses the industry, both professionally as well as sport jumpers. And now it's really becoming such a big thing. So will you tell me the origin story of the European Skydiving Symposium? When did it get started? I know Tom Noonan's name is tied to this, which is wonderful, and we'll talk more about Tom. But please share with our audience about this amazing event.
All right. So everything started in 2018. I was not involved in the project from the very beginning. So we had, in 2017, we had our first tandem fatality in Poland. First and only, by the way. But that was kind of shocking. We in country, we heard about things happening outside of Poland, but we never actually had any incident regarding tandems. So that was the first one. Arek Majewski, who is now the main manager of Skydive Warsaw, he visited PIA a couple of times, and his thought was that it would be so much easier and less expensive to bring one or two speakers to Poland to talk about the safety in tandem skydiving, rather than sending, lots of tandem instructors to states. So his idea was to ask at UPT if there is anyone willing to come to Poland and to share their insights and their expertise and their knowledge with our tandem instructors to avoid any kind of situation that we just had a couple of months back. So his first symposium was for tandem instructors only, and with only one speaker, and that was Tom Noonan. Arek wrote him an email just asking if he would be willing to come to Poland, and he got a reply in 5 minutes, like my standard of, replying. Yeah, and the answer was super short: yes, with pleasure. And that's how it started. Tom came to Poland. So first symposium we had, I say we because I kind of feel like it's part of me as well. But back in the day, I was not involved at all in the organization. So Arek was doing it on his own. There was 77 people coming, only tandem instructors, and the symposium was for free. As I said, we only had one speaker at the time, and that was Tom. One day only. I think it was like 3 or 4 lectures, separate topics, and that's it. A year after, Arek wanted to organize an event that would be more open, not only to tandem instructors, but to everyone. So he changed a couple of things. He opened the format. He also created paid tickets, not much, but still kind of, to cover the costs. He didn't have like official sponsors. A couple of them were supporting him for sure, but not many were even from the industry. Everything was super late because of the dates being confirmed by UPT, also kind of late notice. So he was able to have 120 something attendees, participants. And after the second edition, it was a success because he had not one speaker but 4 speakers, or from United States. I think also Brian Busher was there. I also participated, but only as a guest. And after the last talk, Arek came to me and he said, "You know what? I did this conference, but I feel like I need some help, and I figured that I will organize the skydiving symposium with a drop zone, and every year it will be a different drop zone. How would you feel about co-organizing with me the next edition?" Yeah, my reply was super quick because I really like to take the decisions quickly. And I agreed, of course, and I said that I'm actually organizing conferences for a living, so I guess that I could bring some insights. And the next edition was 2 years after, because that was also one of the decisions of AREC to organize it like every second year, not to collide with PIA. And yeah, the next edition was, so that was the third edition in general, but first one mine, kind of like co-organized with me. We had 350 people attending and already kind of 12 sponsors. From this point, I would like to really thank them a lot, because at that time the project was not so well known. Nobody knew if it's even worth investing any money or time or efforts, resources, whatever. Those 12 brands, they believed us, and they kind of felt that it's worth their time, and that I will deliver what I say that I will deliver. So I really want to thank them. Obviously, UPT was there with us from the very beginning, and they are still there. But also others like Vigil and Cypress and Sunpath as well, PD. They were there from the third edition. So from the moment that the symposium was still not like a big thing, but growing. This is something that I truly appreciate as a person, not as an organizer, but just as myself. And then we had the fourth edition in 2022, which needed to be postponed because originally it was supposed to be in March, as usual. But we set the dates on early March, and in late February, the war started in Ukraine. So obviously we had other priorities at the time, and we postponed the dates of the symposium to November. That edition was really something. I mean, like, that was one of the biggest efforts, kind of, work related, that I ever had. But that was so worth it. We had 550 or 560 participants, 22 sponsors at that time. We heard a lot of good insights about that event, about that edition. So we had we felt like it's a good direction to go. A lot of people called it a blooming brand, which I really loved as an expression, because I felt like it's not just a job well done, it's just the beginning of a lot of work ahead. And then 2 years after, we had the last edition that you were part of.
And how many attendees were there?
At the last edition, 718.
Amazing, the growth curve for this event. When you talk about an event as we are right now and you've never attended it, it would be easy to maybe check out. And I want to highlight for those that are listening that what made this event so special is, yes, there were great speakers there. Yes, the manufacturers and the sponsors were there, and all the things that you would expect. but it was the intangibles that made your event so fantastic. And I know you're also very keen to ensure that you have a team and your co-organizers. Your group made this event so great because it was as if you had empathy for everyone that was coming. What impressed me was not the actual thing that we were all there for, but it was the intangibles. It was a private room for the speakers or sponsors to be able to go and quietly move off, away from conversation to also deal with our daily work, and also coffee available all of the time, which is very helpful when you're very jet lagged.
For sure.
One thing that really impressed me was it was International Women's Day while we were there, and giving out flowers to all the ladies. Very thoughtful.
That was not my idea. That was entirely on Arek.
Well,
That was his idea, his initiative. I was also surprised with a flower, it's not easy to keep secrets from me. I really mean it. The thing that he was able to pull it off, that really tells something about how he really wanted to hide it as a surprise.
it was excellent. And though I didn't get a flower, I really appreciated what was happening there, making sure you had great MCs like with Regan Tetlow and the other gentleman. His name fails me.
Damien.
What was his name?
Damien.
Damien. He was great. Being able to have translation services for those that didn't speak English, that they could wear an earpiece and hear the translation in Polish. There were just too many things to mention, but there was just it was the small things. It was in my family, which is also very detail oriented. We just do this. And for those listening, I'm just sort of pinching my fingers together. It's the little touches that make something so special. What made the event, just to summarize, so great, the information was fantastic, but it was how we were all made to feel while we were there. It's why I think everyone wants to keep coming back, because you feel like you're part of something. And when you're there, you feel looked after. And if you have a problem, somebody is going to be there to help you solve that issue.
Isn't like this like on every conference?
No. No.
Yeah.
And you know better.
I'm not really visiting a lot of conferences that I'm not running, so I don't really know. But you're smiling. The listeners can feel it, but
I've been to many conferences inside skydiving. I've been to many outside of skydiving, mostly marketing conferences, and all have their good and all have their bad. But for me, with marketing, good marketing connects with the heart. It resonates here. Bad marketing or advertising is focused on the brain. And what I feel like what you did so very well is the marketing, particularly with the social media to raise awareness, was great. But then when you got there, it was different in terms of, I feel not like a number. I feel like a valued participant. And it was almost that you could feel gratitude in this feeling. It feels like you are, that we're trying to achieve something. We've got something special here, and none of us are taking it for granted. And all these people are coming to Poland in the middle of winter. That's a big sacrifice for many people coming this far. We want to make sure that if you're going to make the effort to be here, you're going to feel like it's worth it. And everybody felt like it was worth it. It was so well done, Marta. And that's really why
Thank you.
I wanted to have you on this program, because you're feeling like, you look at all the headshots of all the people that have been on this program. You're like, I don't know if I belong. You absolutely belong, because you're really doing something special for this sport, for this industry. And you're doing it in a really unique way, because you're focused on taking care of your people that come to visit, as well as those that come to speak or to exhibit. Everybody feels like we're part of this growing movement. It's filled with heart. That's what it is. It's heartfelt. It's not brain felt. It's wonderful.
Well, I have to say that a lot of what you say is true. I mean, all the compliments, of course, I'm not taking them for granted. It's just that I can really relate to what you said about putting our heart into the projects, because every edition is like a different project kind of, but obviously I also like that you called it a movement. I never thought about it this way, but I kind of feel what you want to say, because now I hear a lot of feedback from participants that is so enthusiastic and so intense and so committed. I don't even know if you can say that about the feedback, but whatever. But people are committed to spread the word, to talk about the symposium. Like we have the ambassador program. So for every country, we have one or two representatives who are kind of our voice in the local community, in local structures, drop zones, federations, whatever. So for every country, we want to have a person who would help us spread the word, but also inform officials and so on, get to know people, get to know the media. But on the other hand, we also have a lot of mini ambassadors, like our participants who are so happy with how the event was that they already say that they are going to push people to attend. Like I hear things like, okay, so I will force my staff to come to the next edition. I want them to hear this. I want them to learn. I learned so much that I want my drop zone to participate. What can we do to help you? We had feedback from the drop zones, because we also had a drop zone program. Well, that was basically offering a free ticket to a drop zone owner who is willing to share information on their social media about the event happening in the first place. We had 46 drop zone tickets, but of course that's not the number of the drop zones that showed up. I think it's kind of 40, probably 35, 40 drop zones. And we had a lot of feedback from them that they find it so valuable and so worth coming that they will encourage everyone to attend. So, we have ambassadors who are kind of officially in the team. We have drop zone owners, actually, because I don't really like entities and companies and such. So we have drop zone owners or managers who are now very much committed, not only to attend themselves, but to push people to come, not only their staff, but also skydivers, also, as you said, fun jumpers. And now we also have the whole layer, I would say, of the participants, the fun jumpers who are not really business related in the sport. They're not jumping for money, they're jumping just for fun, but they want to be safe. I started jumping in 2012, I think. So it's already like 12 years of jumping. And I can really feel and I can really see the difference between how people perceived safety back then and how they perceive it now. How they are willing now to spend money on additional education, which was not at all there when I started. There was not really even, coaching. So you had to discover everything on your own. And now we have a lot of ways to learn. There are videos that are created just for that, educational videos. There are conferences, there are safety days, there are seminars, webinars, a lot of things, symposiums as well, like PIN, EA, and ours. And I can feel that people are really seeing the value of coming to an event, which is a non-jumping event, and benefiting from it and actually taking something away from the event for their own. I kind of like to think that with every edition, we save a life. I don't know if it's true. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It doesn't matter. But I like to think that way, because then I know that the whole effort, which is huge, I won't lie, this is really a lot of work, that it's worth it. We will never know if that life was saved or not, but I kind of like to feel that it was.
Certainly, when everyone leaves, when they get on airplanes, they're more informed, they're more educated. Can you give us any hints of what we can be excited about for the next one in Spain, which will be in Sevilla?
I can't really reveal much. Creating a conference is like a sculpture. The process starts with a block of whatever material you're using, if it's wood or clay or anything else. It doesn't matter, but it's a block of solid material. And you have a vision. You know what you want to achieve. You know the, maybe not in details, but you know in general what you want to create. You start with big ones like dates and venue. So that are two main things that you have to have secured on the very beginning. And then you start working on next things, which are still not details. These are just basic stuff that need to be secured, like agenda, the structure of the agenda, then the structure of the sponsorships, the levels, what you can offer within the venue that you already have, what can be new to the sponsorship structure that can be provided by the venue, or you just think of a new idea how to provide to sponsors new possibilities or new ways of their brand exposure or getting to be more visible. And then after you have that, at least more or less, you start to get into those details. And some of the details are being sculptured like on the very, very end. So you work continuously until the event is done. So for now, I can only tell you that it's going to be fantastic. That's for sure. We are working on this already. I mean, the Spanish team is awesome. I already enjoy working with them because they are really creative. They are really, really invested in the project. They are committed, and I can feel that they really care. And what you said, like you can feel during the event that we care as organizers, this is the highest value that we can provide. We really do care. It's not just an event. It's something that we feel is necessary, it's needed, and is appreciated by every party, by the speakers, by the sponsors, and by the participants. It will be awesome. It will be in Seville. It will be somehow connected to jumping before or after, probably after the event. So there will be some activities for jumpers planned, but this is kind of like aside. It's not the core of the event because the core will remain the same. So we will have the agenda, we will have the workshops, the keynotes, the discussion panels, and so on. So we won't be planning any jumping during the event, only after. We already have a couple of ideas which you will like very much, and I know it. And we already have the venue chosen, but it's not official yet. We don't have this signed yet. So until it's not signed, I can't really reveal anything else. But it's really awesome. It looks amazing. And from the moment I entered the building, I knew it's there. It must be there. So, like you enter the building and you feel the connection with the place. You know you want to do it here. You can see it there. And that was the last building the last venue that we visited. All others were like, okay, it's doable or not doable, depending on the venue. Sometimes we knew from the very beginning that it's not even worth, the whole time of the meeting. Sometimes we actually considered doing this in this place, but only in this one venue we actually felt it. At least I felt it. And I knew. So I can't really reveal much. I already know a couple of speakers that are going to be there, but I can't really tell anything now. Everything will be revealed in the proper time. But, getting back to the sculpture metaphor, some details of the previous edition were sculptured 2 or 3 days before. Like, for example, the map with the dots where everybody could pin their location, the original location they're coming from. For those who were not there, there was like a big map, more or less 2 meters wide, of the whole world, all continents, Europe the biggest. Sorry, but just we wanted to have all the details of the countries. So that was not a real map. Whatever. So there was a map and there were like little stickers, little dots that you could put on the map and sign your name just to show everyone where do you come from. And that map was printed a day before the conference. And we thought about the idea 2 days before the conference. It was like one of our synchro calls just to make sure that we have it all secure, like going through all stages of the event just to make sure. And one of the sudden was, hey, what about this idea? Let's do this and that. Let's do the map. And that was one of the details that you mentioned, and many other people mentioned that they liked really, really a lot. So a lot of details that you feel like we really put a lot of thought into into this. A lot of them are really spontaneous.
It's a small detail, but it actually, a lot of people stopped to look at that map to see where around the globe people had come from to attend. And I met an extraordinary lady from, I believe it's Kenya. Her own journey is extraordinary, and who I would like to have on this podcast because she traveled extremely far, but she's also breaking major barriers as a woman in skydiving in Africa. I will say, Marta, I think you're breaking barriers too. I recognize that in listening to your story and reading your story, that when you started in 2012, you were maybe like one of 5 women on the drop zone.
3, yeah.
3, so you are representing a minority, but with great strength. It's very impressive to see.
I don't really like to think of women as minority in skydiving. Of course, we are fewer for sure, but we have our own ways. I mean, like, of course, back in the day in 2012, there were just a few of us, and like I had my goal of becoming an AFF instructor from the very first day that I was at the drop zone. Like from my tandem skydive, I knew what I want to do. That was my biggest dream, my biggest goal. And I was so focused on it, maybe even too much, I would say, if you know what I mean. So I was jumping hard a lot and investing a lot of time and money and effort in that. But I was being discouraged by some people a lot. I mean, it's not a job for a woman. You need strength. You need to have muscles. You need to have weight as well, because, you can't really jump with someone who is like 20 kilos above you. So there were a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but those who were discouraging me, they were putting some efforts into it. It was something that I had to ignore consciously. Sebastian was super helpful in the process, my partner, and also, as I said, he was my instructor. He said something that and it was on the very early stage of my journey. I had maybe 100, maybe 150 jumps, something like that. And I came to him and I said, someone told me that this is not a job for a woman, and not a job for a woman of my size. For those who don't know me, I'm like super short and small. I told him that, and he said, don't listen to him. He's an instructor, but he's not a good instructor, He only flies with his muscles and with his strength and not with the technique. And the only thing you need is the technique. If you know how to do it, if you know the tricks, and I will teach you all of them, you can fly with whoever. And he was right. Well, almost. I still have some limits of the weight of my students. So I won't be having, any student who doubles my weight, but still I can fly with almost whoever.
It's a testament, Marta, again, to when I describe you as a force, because learning to skydive in Poland, it's not like going to Eloy and cranking out your AFF in a few days or a week or whatever, but it's also very expensive. And I understand that you took a loan from your dad and an actual bank to be able to finance your, at least first 100 jobs.
Yeah, that's correct. I paid off the loan when I was already an instructor after 5 years.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was, but as I said, it was like from the very beginning, I knew that I want to do it. So, if you feel with your whole heart that this is your way and your direction to go, you disregard the excuses and you just find a way.
Big message, a big learning point there that I want to emphasize. You find a way, and you did. If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. Marta, what was the circumstance that led you to the drop zone for the first time for that first jump?
My friend was going. He called a couple of days before the jump and he said, yeah, I figured that I want to do it. That was on my list. What's your plans for the weekend? And I had none. So I said, okay, I'll come with you. So yeah. Well, I was after a breakup. So this is like a usual story, you know, like a lot of people feel that they need kind of reset or start something new, start something fresh. And I guess that I was just one of them. The only thing that is different, that I loved the skydiving so much from the very first jump. And then after a week, I fell in love with my actual instructor.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
Well, of course. So as I said, it's kind of, a common story.
Yeah, and a beautiful story too. I mean, what a life-changing moment.
Yeah, well, we do advertise a lot skydiving as something unforgettable and something that will change your life. I'm the best example of how this one tandem jump can actually change your life forever.
Certainly, in so many different ways. And I understand your first 80 jumps were solo. And when I heard that, I mean, most people never stay in the sport if they're making 80 jumps by themselves.
Well,
and you kept at it. Clearly, and this is where I wanted to know, is it more about experience, or is it because, there were not many women on the drop zone? Or, why was it that you made so many jumps on your own?
Well, a little bit of everything. First of all, I am super light. So not many people could actually jump with me. Well, I could wear a belt for sure. I think it was about experience. As I told you, in 2012, there weren't any coaches. So that institution didn't even exist, or a job. We only had, at the drop zone, we only had some camps. I mean, like 2 or 3 camps per year. Something about canopy piloting and one belly, but both were for more experienced people than myself. A lot of people who were at the drop zone, they were either in my own status, so student or fresh licensed, so not really able to fly together, or super experienced who are not going to jump with chickens as us. I would say it's lack of availability of other people or willingness to jump with early jumpers. That's also something, like my experience let me introduce new procedures and new ways of actually sustain a person in skydiving and support them and motivate them. We created at the drop zone kind of a guide or booklet with things you can do after AFF, exercises you can do on your own, exercises you can do with a coach or with an instructor. What do you need to do until your license, until your 50 jumps? Because we don't have a license in Poland, in Polish system. So we have this. We have also a set of coaches on the drop zone. So now when I can see people coming to AFF and after they finish and they're like, okay, so what I can do to jump with others. So that they're like run right into it. I was like, man, I did like 80 jumps on my own. A little bit of patience, jump on your own at least a couple of times, just to feel that you are self-dependent and you actually are altitude aware, you are okay with your body position, with your opening, with your awareness where you are regarding the location of the drop zone, and not jump right into 3 ways, 4 ways, and so on. So yeah, it changed a lot. And I think that I would probably quit if it wasn't for Sebastian again and for this biggest dream that I had. Like that was my, long-term goal, which I set for 7 or 8 years. And in the end, I was able to complete it within almost 5. But yeah, the beginnings were hard.
Yeah, it's a testament to you that you have, again, maintained that drive and that focus through a period where most people in skydiving today would not do 80 jumps and stay in the sport. They would feel very
bored,
sort of alone and not really enjoying, bored, exactly the word. Fast forward to today, you've got over 2,000 jumps. You're an AFF instructor. You're also on the board of the Drop Zone Sky Camp. What has been your most challenging day in overseeing or operating a drop zone?
Oh my God. There is none. I mean, there is nothing like the most challenging day. We had so many crises. That's for a long, long conversation. Well, we had a crisis of not having a plane, not having a drop zone and the plane. Then having a prop strike was also not fun. We had one fatality, which was actually, I think, emotionally the most difficult day for sure. Now, when I think of it, I think that was the one. So during the 12 years that I'm in the sport, that was the only fatality that we had with a fun jumper. But yeah, we had a lot of crisis moments, and like being a drop zone operator. For many skydivers, there are a lot of things and work that you have to do, which is invisible. But well, it is visible when it's not done. But if it's done, nobody can see it, so nobody can actually appreciate it. It's very, very challenging, and it's also kind of frustrating to see like people complaining about small things and not really noticing how many big things they were done to actually provide with the plane, with the drop zone, with the fuel and instructors and everyone. From all the list of jobs that you mentioned on the very beginning, that's the most challenging and frustrating at the same time. You know that you create the place that people actually love. That's something that moves me forward.
It's a very challenging business to operate. And I think a lot of it's an interesting dichotomy whereby the people that are jumping are literally having the time of their lives. But the operator of the drop zone is going through so much often, whether it be concerned about cash flow and the financials of a business that is mandated by an uncontrollable variable like weather,
Yeah, exactly.
dealing with fallout when there is a fatality. There are so many different variables that really take a toll. And I speak with many drop zone operators, and because of the of the personality types that run operations, that it's always charging ahead, always charging ahead. But through time, that can take a toll. And I often have to remind drop zone operators that they need to view themselves as business athletes. You have to get enough rest. You cannot train or run this drop zone all the time. You have to get off the drop zone. You can't be there 7 days a week. You shouldn't be. Soon the fun and the passion that brought you there starts to erode. You got to take a break. You got to take care of yourself. You got to eat well. You got to rest. You got to take a break. All these things, and is why I think we see so many drop zone operators, certainly here in the US, that are just completely burnt out, and the love of the sport is gone because it takes a physical and an emotional toll on you if you're not self-aware that it's doing that.
Yeah, you're like
It's a tough business.
100% right. I can relate to every single word that you said. There was time that I was taking care of so many things on my list every single day that I actually hated the place. For there was a time. But then we realized that we have to reorganize everything, because other way we will turn out to be, as you said, like burnout and actually suitable for the job. Because if you hate the place, you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't do it. You have your family to sustain, so you don't really see yourself in other position. For me, running a drop zone is not my only thing that I do. And I think that's exactly what keeps me moving forward with everything, like with every direction. I had my other conferences, my e-commerce conferences that I do. I have European Skydiving Symposium, which is, I won't lie, this is the biggest and most fulfilling and important project of my business life. And we have Sky Camp. So there is a lot of business directions that I go in the same time. Basically, thanks to that, I can have this time off, as you said. Of course, it's time off from the symposium. Then I take care of the drop zone, And once I'm tired with the drop zone by the end of the season, around October, there's time to take care of the symposium or other projects that are on the way. And also, not to forget the kids.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
5 a.m., 5:30.
I imagine it would be early.
Yeah, but actually, I started to wake up this early around January, mid of January. But I really enjoy it, and I find it the best change in my recent life. I mean, in the recent years.
So it was a conscious decision. Is that to allow time for self before you go 100 miles an hour as a mum and, as operating a business and a lot of demands being pulled on you?
Well, of course, on the very beginning, the intention was to wake up early to just work more, to fulfill more tasks from my list. It turned out to be, my precious hour and a half of the day that I have only to myself. I learn Spanish. I read books. I do some other tasks not tasks, just some my stuff that I do for myself. I take care of myself, as you said. Like every time that I see the, life coaching advice of, you have to take care of yourself, find 15 minutes in the day for yourself. So before I started to wake up this early, that was impossible. Like, you can't really have 15 minutes for yourself if you have 3 jobs and 2 kids and a partner and, maybe friends. You don't really get to have time for your own because the day has only 24 hours. You can't really do anything about it. And eventually you can just wake up early. And I don't have 15 minutes to myself. I have 90 minutes to myself. And I really appreciate it. And if ever I wake up a little bit later, like not 5:30, but for example, 5:45 or 6, I have the feeling that I robbed myself with that precious time.
It's a good habit. I know many of the leaders that I read about, or business leaders I read about, always tend to get up early and carve time for self or exercise or whatever they're trying to do before they fully engage with the rest of the world to get themselves centered. We're running a little bit short of time, Marta, but I want to talk about the war in Ukraine. And the reason why I want to speak about it is because the rest of the world is consuming this war in the news, and so there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Poland is on the border of Ukraine. One thing that really struck me is that when the war first broke out, of course, there were many refugees coming across the border from Ukraine into Poland, and Poland as a whole really welcomed these refugees to give them help and assistance as they literally were coming across the border with just a bag,
Yeah, IKEA bag.
with the absolute bare minimum. And I understand that you all opened up your drop zone, your hangar, that helped house over 400 refugees through time, many of them children. I want us to get a better understanding of what that's like because we're a world away. We're watching it, but we're not feeling it.
Okay.
Right? We have a consciousness of it, but it's not as close to home as it is for you.
For sure.
What is this threat like? And this period of time, particularly when the war first broke out for you and how the drop zone contributed?
We also now, after 2 years, we also feel a bit disconnected because, people got a bit tired with the topic. And many of people I know, they are even kind of not only bored with the war, but they also have the feeling that it's not our war, so we shouldn't get involved in it. And that's, of course, the work of a lot of Russian trolls, bots on the internet. So the nation has a kind of change of heart a bit, but not everyone. If a person actually is able to connect some dots, you can see that supporting Ukraine is something that we have to do. I mean, they are really giving what's most important. They're giving their lives so we can sit here just across the border. You can sit here, eat our McDonald's, go to the movies, jump, and do whatever we want. While in Ukraine, there was not even one commercial jump since 2 years or actually more. So when it started, we couldn't really believe it, that you could read in the news that Putin is about to go into the country, but we couldn't really believe it. And it was just okay. So it's only news, clickbaits, and so on. And then it did happen. So first 3 days, they were a shock, like we couldn't really feel that it's really happening. And then after the first 3 days, when you could see that the bombs are really falling on the cities that that you visited someday, the streets, the squares and so on, the statues, then you could see people on the border, as you said, with with all their belongings in the IKEA bag. Kids, they were not even crying, they were kind of distracted and frightened, but not really crying. And a lot of people started to drive to the border to pick up people from there, because they were crossing the border and then they didn't know what to do. The government was acting really slow, too slow. I was overwhelmed with how our nation stood up together, regardless all the differences that we had between ourselves, no matter if you're more into the right or into the left, or what's your political orientation or your ways to see the world, doesn't matter. Because at that time we were really united. Like Poland is a country of people who can be amazingly united, but only for a short period of time. Only when we have a common enemy, and then we can unite, we can fight back, we can stand together. And that was exactly it. People started to open their own houses, not like some spare house or spare apartment that they had, their own places where they lived. So they got their kids from the kid room, and they were hosting a family in their kids room, or in I don't know, in the guest room or whatever. So totally strangers. And our drop zone was not the only one who was helping. Skydive Warsaw were organizing the convoys with humanitarian help driving to Ukraine. They also opened their places where usually the skydivers sleep, to host the refugees. We had a refugee center. Yeah, well, now it sounds very official. But we had a place at the drop zone where we could host people. And first of all, we renovated super quick rooms that were not suitable for a living. They were not used for many, many years. So we actually took over the place just a year before. So we were also new to the all logistics and infrastructure and everything. So we didn't know a lot of things about the buildings, hangars, apartments, and everything. So we discovered that we have more space. That was an amazing time when I said I needed something, and I had it done the day after. I said that I needed an apartment to be renovated, repainted, or whatever, and it was done overnight. So I came in the morning, and my friends from the drop zone, the jumpers that we jump with normally, they came and they said, you said that you needed to be painted, so it's done. You can move people in there right away. It was like that with everything that I needed. If it was food or, some cosmetics or hygiene products or first aid products or some help from kids psychiatrists and psychologists, trauma specialists, and so on, we had it on the spot. Like, I only announced it through our social media that I need something, that I have. For example, I had a boy of 6 years old, a little autistic. He had a really hard time when hearing a plane or a helicopter. And we were on the drop zone, so airfield, and we couldn't really tell people not to fly, okay? So we needed to move him and his family somewhere else. Once I announced it, I had, within 2 hours, I had a home where to move the family, and a psychologist who offered his help for free to assist to the boy. And there were a lot of these situations, especially with kids. They were really something that I remember after years now. Like, for example, I was going to the basement where we had a storage room for all the cosmetics and hygiene products and this kind of stuff. I wanted to grab something. I don't remember what that was, but I was going downstairs. So I turned on the light and I was going downstairs, and a girl of maybe 4 years old, super small, she ran down, she passed me, and she was screaming something. And I didn't know what that was because it was Ukrainian. Polish and Ukrainian are similar kind of, but I didn't get that. So I asked a person that was helping us with translations, what was that? And she said, you know what? She was screaming, everybody down, everybody down. And I learned that the kids are instructed by their parents that if they see any adult going downstairs to the basement, they have to run there as quickly as they can to hide, and they should scream that everybody down, everybody down. And that was one of those moments when it really hit me that they are escaping war. I knew it with my brain. I even felt it with my heart, but not fully. And from that moment, I felt it 100%. So my commitment was even higher.
Your dad today is actively raising money to acquire ambulances to send to the front line. And I'm going to share the link in the show notes if any of our listeners feel compelled that they wish to donate to that cause, whether it be $5 or whatever is anyone's capacity. But it seems very evident to me, or the realization that hit for me when I was in Poland is if Ukraine fails, then Europe truly is at risk, and now we're looking at a much larger scale war that involves much of Europe, or really the world. And it is a very scary thing to think about in such terms, and why I am reminded that we must support Ukraine because the world needs them to survive this period of time. And I could feel, for some strange reason, it didn't occur to me at that scale until I was in Poland. And I also felt like there was a malaise when we were in Warsaw, almost like a hangover of war. I am not of a generation that lived in World War II, but it was strange, Marta, and maybe you can correct me, but I almost felt that war didn't seem so far in the past as it feels for me.
For sure. It's also connected with our education system. There's a lot of war in the program for both primary school and high school. So we are through it like every couple of years. You have to repeat all the information. You read a lot of books that are in the program that you have to read. And also the surroundings, as you said, there are statues, there are museums, there are also places that were destroyed during the war, and they're kept that way. They are not restored on purpose, just to remind ourselves what we have to lose. And this is the reminder that is now more important than ever, because I truly believe that if Ukraine falls, we are next in line. And of course, I can say we as Poland, but since we are part of NATO and part of also European Union, if we are next in line, both those organizations are actually next in line. And once this happens, it's not only Europe war, it's global, because then United States will get involved, obviously. My priority actually won't be really taking refugees at our drop zones. I will just take my girls and run away.
Marta, that must be, here we're trying to live a life of skydiving and skydiving symposiums, but there's this there's this noise in the background of your head that goes, history has shown that this can happen. Did you lay awake at night worried?
No.
Concerned?
No, but that's because, first of all, I saw a lot of people running away, and I saw them struggling, I saw them winning, and I saw them settling, getting a job, and living their life. So it is possible to go abroad and then start over. That's one thing. Then the experience of having the refugee center gave me, this might sound funny a bit, but then I could see what kind of items people forget from their homes, like batteries or flippers. They never forget documents because they were already prepared for the war. So usually people were keeping the most important documents with themselves, like passports, property documents, and so on. But they forgot a lot about the daily stuff, like toothpaste or things that you don't really bring to the vacations, like, as I said, flippers or something. So I know what to take if it's the case that I have to run. It might sound a bit like overreacting or freaking out a bit, but I do have my evacuation backpack ready, just in case. And I have it ready since February 2022. I packed it then with all the documents that I need to have, with all my, university diploma and property issues and things that I want to take and things that I need to take. And they're all in one backpack, So obviously it would be nice to take more, but in case I have to take only one backpack, that would be it. And I have everything in there. So I take my girls and I take this backpack and we're good. Everything else can be bought.
It's a harsh reality.
Yeah.
To think in such terms and try to operate with a normal life while that radiates.
And then being so enthusiastic about the sport that you're working in, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No question. It certainly puts skydiving in perspective with the realities of the world. This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. Last question, Marta.
Sure.
I like to think about crossroads moments. What I mean by that is perhaps in our lives, as we are going down a path that's expected, and then we're presented maybe with an opportunity or a moment that may seem very small, but that moment where you make a decision changes the entire direction of your life. Can you think of a crossroads moment that, had you not said yes or been curious about or pursued, maybe you and I are not speaking right now?
I won't be really creative when I say that, and it won't reveal any new story. But I think that if I said to that friend that had the plan to go skydiving, okay, have fun and tell me how it was, or if I said, you know what, I would go with you, but I have some other plans, which I did have, and I changed them. So if I just did that, I would probably never got into it that much. Or maybe I would jump some days after, months, years, and I wouldn't love it that much. Maybe I wouldn't meet Sebastian. Everything would be different if I didn't do this first leap of faith, I guess.
It's amazing when you think about that one decision. Would change
I
the rest of
actually
your life.
feel that you're talking about the crossroad moment, but I am sure that there are hundreds of those moments which we don't really recognize, because you can't really you can't tell what would happen if you would go right and not left. Maybe if you would go left, you would be hit by a car. If you took any other decision, even smallest, then you would be a completely different person after years. It's the famous butterfly effect, or however you call it, doesn't matter. But the thing is that even the smallest decision can actually change a lot. But in most cases, you will never know what was that decision and what was that crossroad moment. You will never know. So the only thing you can do is just to take all the decisions with your heart.
Great spot to end. Marta, we've covered your background, we've covered skydiving, we've covered difficult days running a drop zone, we've covered European Skydiving Symposium, we've covered major war. We've covered a lot.
That's true.
And I'm really grateful for your time, and I'm appreciative to call you a friend. You have my complete respect.
Thank you very much again for having me. And as I mentioned on the very beginning, I'm truly honored to be among such superstars as I saw in the previous episodes of your podcast. Whatever you say won't change it. I don't really feel like I belong it, but I will really work hard in the next weeks and months and years to be worthy to be on that spot. Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure, Marta. You are already a superstar, and I look forward to you owning that title.
And I hope to see you in Sevilla in 2026.
I hope to see you there too.
You're invited.
And I'm planning to be there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.